I saw my daughter-in-law throw something into the dumpster behind the old warehouse and drive away. It was 6:47 a.m. on a freezing December morning. The temperature was 18 degrees. I heard a sound, faint, muffled, desperate. A sound that made my blood run cold. "Please, God, don't let it be what I think it is," I whispered, my breath forming white clouds in the frozen air. I ran toward the dumpster, my arthritic knees screaming in protest. I climbed up the side, my hands trembling and numb from the cold. I pulled back the black plastic garbage bag she'd thrown in. What I saw inside made me shake in a way I had never felt in my 64 years of life. But let me explain how I got to that moment. How a quiet winter morning turned into the most horrifying scene I have ever witnessed. But before we continue, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and write in the comments where you're watching this video from. We love to know how far our stories travel. My name is Barbara Reynolds. I'm 64 years old, and I live alone in a small apartment in Queens, New York. I've been a widow for 8 years since my husband Thomas died of a heart attack. I worked as an ER nurse for 30 years before I retired. I've seen terrible things: gunshot wounds, overdoses, children beaten by their own parents. I thought I'd seen the worst humanity had to offer. I was wrong. 7 months ago, my son Marcus died in a car accident. He was 32 years old, a software engineer, kind, intelligent, everything a mother could want in a son. He'd been driving home from dinner with his wife Tiffany when his car went off the road and hit a tree. Marcus died instantly. Tiffany walked away with minor scratches. That's what the police report said. An accident. Tragic, but not suspicious. But I never believed it. That December morning, I couldn't sleep. I'd been having nightmares about Marcus, vivid dreams where he was trying to tell me something, trying to warn me, but I couldn't hear him. I woke up at 5:30 a.m. in my cold apartment, the radiator hissing and clanking but barely producing heat. I made coffee and sat by my window, looking out at the dark street below. My neighborhood wasn't great: aging buildings, chain-link fences, graffiti on every corner, but it was home. I'd raised Marcus in this apartment. Every corner held a memory. At 6:15 a.m., I saw Tiffany's car pull up to the curb across the street. I recognized it immediately. A silver Honda Civic, the same car she'd been driving the night Marcus died. The same car that should have been totaled but somehow only needed minor repairs. Tiffany got out, looking around nervously. She was wearing a heavy coat, but I could see she was thinner than she'd been at the funeral. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked exhausted, scared, guilty. She opened the back door of the car and pulled out a large black garbage bag. It was heavy. I could tell by the way she struggled with it, by how her body bent under the weight. Something was wrong. Very wrong. I grabbed my coat and my phone and hurried downstairs. The cold hit me like a slap when I stepped outside. The wind cut through my layers, making my eyes water. It was the kind of cold that made you question why anyone lived in New York in December. Tiffany was walking quickly down the street, away from her car, carrying the garbage bag. She kept looking over her shoulder, nervous, paranoid. I followed her, staying far enough back that she wouldn't notice. My heart was pounding. My nursing instincts were screaming that something was terribly wrong. She turned down an alley between 2 abandoned warehouses. I knew this area. It was where the city had placed industrial dumpsters for the construction companies working on the new development project. Nobody came here at dawn. Nobody would see her. I pressed myself against the brick wall of a building, peering around the corner. Tiffany walked up to one of the large metal dumpsters. She looked around one more time, then swung the bag once, twice, and on the third swing, she threw it into the dumpster. The sound echoed in the alley. Birds scattered from a nearby fire escape. Then she ran, back down the alley, back to her car, her footsteps echoing on the frozen pavement. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, trying to process what I'd just seen. Tiffany throwing away garbage in an industrial dumpster at 6:45 in the morning. Why? What was in that bag that she had to dispose of it here, secretly, at dawn? And then I heard it. A sound so faint I almost thought I'd imagined it. A cry. A baby's cry. My blood turned to ice. "No," I whispered. No, no, no. I ran toward the dumpster, my feet slipping on patches of ice. The dumpster was 8 feet tall, rusted metal, filled with construction debris, broken drywall, wood scraps, metal pipes. And somewhere in that pile of frozen garbage was a baby. I grabbed the side of the dumpster. The metal was so cold it burned my bare hands. I tried to pull myself up but couldn't. At 64, I didn't have the upper body strength I'd had 20 years ago. "Help!" I screamed into the empty alley. "Someone help!" No one came. It was too early. The city was still sleeping. I heard the cry again, weaker this time. Fading. I looked around desperately and saw a wooden crate next to the building. I dragged it over, stacked it against the dumpster, and climbed up. My knees protested, my back screamed, but I kept climbing. I swung my leg over the edge of the dumpster and dropped inside, landing hard on a pile of broken wood. Pain shot through my hip, but I didn't care. "Where are you?" I called out, my voice echoing in the metal container. "Baby, where are you?" Another cry to my left. I scrambled over debris, cutting my hands on sharp metal, not caring. The cold inside the dumpster was even worse than outside. No sunlight, just dark, frozen air. And then I saw it. The black garbage bag, partially buried under a pile of wood and insulation. I grabbed it and tore it open with shaking hands. Inside, wrapped in a thin hospital blanket, was a newborn baby. My world stopped. The baby's lips were blue. His skin was gray. His eyes were closed. He wasn't moving. "Oh my God," I sobbed, pulling him out of the bag. "Oh my God, no." He was so cold, so impossibly cold, like holding a doll made of ice. I pressed my ear to his tiny chest. I heard nothing. No heartbeat, no breath. "No, no, no," I repeated like a prayer. I'd been an ER nurse for 30 years. I knew what death looked like. And this baby looked dead. But then, a flutter. So faint I thought I'd imagined it. A tiny movement of his chest. He was breathing. Barely, but breathing. My training kicked in. I unzipped my coat and pulled the baby against my chest, skin to skin, trying to transfer my body heat to his frozen body. I zipped my coat back up with him inside, creating a cocoon of warmth. "Stay with me," I whispered. "Please, baby, stay with me." I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? "A baby," I gasped. "I found a baby in a dumpster. He's not breathing right. He's freezing. Please send help." "Corner of Riverside and 47th Street. The old industrial area. Please hurry." "Ma'am, I'm sending an ambulance now. Is the baby responsive?" "Barely. He's blue. He's so cold." Tears were streaming down my face, freezing on my cheeks. "Okay, I need you to try to warm him up. Do you have blankets?" "I have him against my chest, under my coat." "Good. That's good. Stay on the line with me. The ambulance is 7 minutes away." 7 minutes, an eternity. I looked at the baby's face. He had a tiny nose, Marcus's nose. Dark hair, Marcus's hair. Long fingers, Marcus's fingers. And then I knew. I knew with absolute certainty whose baby this was. This was my grandson, Marcus's son. The child Tiffany had told us she miscarried 4 months ago. She'd lied. She'd been pregnant. She'd given birth. And then she'd thrown the baby away like garbage. "She tried to kill you," I whispered to the baby. "But I found you. Grandma found you." The 7 minutes felt like 7 hours. I sat in that freezing dumpster, holding a dying baby against my chest, listening to the 911 operator's voice, and trying not to think about what would have happened if I hadn't followed Tiffany. If I'd stayed in my apartment, if I'd ignored my instincts, this baby would have frozen to death in a pile of garbage. Finally, I heard sirens. Red and white lights flashed at the entrance to the alley. "We're here," I screamed. "In the dumpster." 2 paramedics appeared at the edge. A young man with a beard and an older woman with gray hair pulled back in a ponytail. "Ma'am, we're going to get you out," the woman called down. "How's the baby?" "Barely breathing. Severe hypothermia. Approximately 3 days old based on appearance. Umbilical cord tied with string." The woman's eyebrows shot up. You're medical? Retired ER nurse. Okay, good. We're lowering a basket. Put the baby in it first. They lowered a rescue basket on ropes. I carefully placed the baby inside, keeping the blanket wrapped around him. They pulled him up quickly, efficiently. Then they lowered the basket again for me. I climbed in, my body protesting every movement, and they hauled me up. The cold air outside the dumpster felt warm compared to inside. The female paramedic, her name tag said Lisa Park, was already working on the baby, checking vitals, attaching monitors. Core temperature is 89 degrees, she called to her partner. Severe hypothermia, possible frostbite on extremities. We need to move now. They loaded the baby into the ambulance. Lisa looked at me. You're coming with us. It wasn't a question. I climbed into the ambulance, sat on the small bench seat, and watched as they worked on the baby with frightening efficiency. IVs, oxygen, warming blankets, monitors beeping and flashing. How did you find him? Lisa asked as she worked. I saw someone throw the bag into the dumpster. I heard him crying. Did you see who it was? I opened my mouth, closed it. Tiffany, my daughter-in-law, the woman who had cried at Marcus's funeral as if her world had ended. The woman who had just tried to murder her own child. How could I say that? How could I even believe it myself? Yes, I finally said. I saw who it was. The ambulance screamed through the frozen streets of Queens, lights flashing, siren wailing. Inside, the baby lay on a tiny gurney, surrounded by equipment, so small and fragile. Is he going to make it? I asked. Lisa looked up, her face neutral but her eyes honest. I don't know. The next hour is critical. His body temperature is dangerously low. If we can warm him up gradually without shocking his system, he has a chance. But I won't lie to you. Babies who've been exposed to this level of cold for this long don't usually survive. Usually. But not always. We arrived at Queens General Hospital in less than 10 minutes. The ER doors flew open. A team of doctors and nurses swarmed the gurney, shouting medical terms, numbers. Orders I understood from my years in nursing. Neonate, approximately 72 hours old, severe hypothermia, temperature 89.3, possible hypoglycemia, possible sepsis. They rushed him through double doors marked Trauma Bay 1. I tried to follow, but a nurse stopped me. Ma'am, you need to stay here. The doctors are working. That's my grandson, I said. The nurse looked at me with sympathy and confusion. I need you to sit down. We have questions. She led me to a small waiting room with plastic chairs and fluorescent lights. Another nurse appeared, older, with kind eyes and a name tag that read Amy Park. She sat across from me with a tablet. I'm going to need you to tell me everything that happened, she said gently. And I did. I told her about seeing Tiffany, about following her, about finding the baby in the dumpster. Amy took notes, nodding, not interrupting. When I finished, she sighed deeply. The police are on their way. This is attempted murder, maybe worse. Attempted murder. The words hung in the air like a curse. My daughter-in-law, a murderer. Amy put her hand on mine. You saved a life today. You did the right thing. But it didn't feel like that. It felt like I had uncovered something terrible, something that couldn't be put back in the darkness, something that would change everything forever. A doctor appeared an hour later, young, maybe 35, with exhaustion written on his face and hands that smelled of antiseptic soap. The baby is stable, he said. For now, he's in the NICU. He suffered severe hypothermia and possible frostbite on his toes and fingers. His lungs show signs of respiratory distress. The next 48 hours are critical. Is he going to live? I asked, my voice breaking. I don't know, he said with brutal honesty. We're going to do everything we can. Detective Monica Rivera arrived 45 minutes later. She was a woman in her mid-40s, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that seemed to see through lies. She sat across from me in the waiting room and pulled out a notepad. Mrs. Reynolds, I need you to walk me through everything that happened this morning. Every detail. I told the story again. The car, following Tiffany, the dumpster, finding the baby. Monica listened without expression, taking notes. When I finished, she looked up. And you're certain it was Tiffany Reynolds? Your daughter-in-law? Completely certain. Why would she do something like that? I don't know. Where is she now? I don't know. When was the last time you spoke to her before today? 3 weeks ago, at a memorial service for my son. Monica wrote something down. She looked at her partner, a younger man who'd been standing quietly by the door. We're going to need you to come to the station tomorrow to make a formal statement, Monica said. And you cannot contact Tiffany under any circumstances. Do you understand? I nodded. What would I say to her anyway? Why did you try to kill your baby? Why did you throw him away like trash? Why? Why the officers left. Amy brought me a blanket and a cup of tea. You should go home. Get some rest. Change your clothes. I looked down. My coat was filthy from the dumpster. Oil stains, dirt, bits of insulation. My hands were cut and bruised. I hadn't even noticed, but I couldn't leave. I couldn't leave that baby alone in the hospital. That baby I had held against my chest, who had breathed his last gasps of hope in my arms. Can I see him? I asked. Not yet. Only immediate family can visit the NICU, and we don't even know who the family is. I'm the grandmother, I said firmly. We'll need to confirm that. But for now, you need to rest. I stayed in the waiting room. Amy brought me dry clothes from the hospital storage, scrub pants and a shirt that was too big. I changed in the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror. I looked like I'd aged 10 years in 3 hours. I didn't sleep. I sat in that plastic chair watching the clock. Every hour I got up and asked about the baby. The nurses gave me the same answer. Stable, critical, fighting. At 3 p.m., Father Michael O'Brien showed up, the priest from my church. Someone must have called him. He sat next to me in silence for a long time, just being there. God tests us in many ways, he finally said. This doesn't feel like a test, I replied. It feels like a nightmare, he nodded. He didn't try to convince me otherwise, and I appreciated that more than any sermon. When the sun began to set outside the waiting room windows, I knew nothing would ever be the same. I had crossed a line. I had seen something I couldn't unsee, and whatever came next, I would have to face it. Because that baby, that tiny being fighting for every breath in the next room, had become my responsibility. I hadn't chosen it, but I couldn't abandon him either. Not after pulling him from that frozen dumpster, not after feeling his heartbeat against mine. The night stretched endlessly. I dozed in the chair, waking every few minutes, my body aching from sitting, from the cold, from climbing into that dumpster. My hands throbbed where I'd cut them on metal. My hip throbbed where I'd landed wrong. But I didn't leave. At 7 a.m., exactly 24 hours after I'd found the baby, a different doctor appeared. A woman this time, older, with glasses and a serious expression. Mrs. Reynolds? I stood up quickly, my heart pounding. He's alive. His body temperature is back to normal. He's breathing on his own. He's going to make it. I collapsed back into the chair, sobbing. Relief crashed over me like a wave. Can I see him? The doctor hesitated. We need to discuss something first. We ran DNA tests on the baby. Standard procedure in cases like this. DNA tests. I already knew what they would show. The baby is your biological grandson, she said. Son of your son, Marcus Reynolds. Even though I'd known, hearing it confirmed made it real. Marcus had a son he'd never met. A son Tiffany had tried to kill. Where's Tiffany? I asked. The police are looking for her. She hasn't been at her apartment. Her phone is off. She's disappeared. Running, hiding, planning her next move. The doctor led me through security doors, down hallways, into the NICU, babies in incubators, monitors beeping, the smell of disinfectant and hope. And there, in the corner, was my grandson. He was so small. Tubes and wires connected to his tiny body. But his skin was pink now, not blue. His chest rose and fell steadily. He was alive. Can I touch him? I whispered. Yes, just be gentle. I reached my hand through the opening in the incubator and touched his tiny hand. His fingers wrapped around my index finger. A reflex, but it felt like a promise. Hello, little one, I whispered. I'm your grandma, and I promise I'm going to protect you. No one is ever going to hurt you again. Amy appeared beside me. He needs a name. For the records. Marcus had always wanted to name his first son after himself. Marcus Jr., I remembered him saying it once, years ago, before he'd even met Tiffany. His name is Marcus, I said. Marcus Jr. We'll call him MJ. Over the next 3 days, the police searched for Tiffany. They checked her apartment, empty, cleaned out. They checked her bank accounts, One large withdrawal of $8,000 3 days ago, then nothing. They checked airports, bus stations, train stations. Nothing. She'd vanished. Meanwhile, I stayed at the hospital. The social worker, Sandra Wright, came to interview me on the third day. "Mrs. Reynolds, I need to ask you about your situation. The baby will need a home when he's released from the hospital. He'll come home with me." Sandra looked at me with pity. "It's not that simple. You're 64 years old. You're not a certified foster parent. You have no legal relationship to the baby. And you're involved in an active criminal investigation." I saved his life, I know. But the system has protocols. We need to ensure the baby's best interests. His best interest is being with family. With me, that will be up to a judge to decide. In the meantime, the baby will remain in state custody. State custody. Strangers taking care of my grandson. People who didn't know Marcus, who didn't understand what this baby meant. But I had no choice. Not yet. Detective Rivera came back on the fourth day with news. "We found Tiffany's car," she said, "abandoned at JFK Airport. We think she fled the country. We've issued an international warrant, but finding her is going to be difficult." "What about the baby? What about Marcus? Can you prove what she did?" Monica pulled out a folder. "We're building a case. We found evidence in her apartment, birth supplies, bloody towels, proof she gave birth at home. We have your testimony. We have the baby. What we don't have is Tiffany. What happens now? We keep looking. And you need to prepare yourself. This is going to be a long fight. For custody, for justice, for everything." I looked through the window at the NICU, at MJ sleeping peacefully in his incubator. "I don't care how long it takes," I said. "That's my grandson, Marcus's son, and I'm going to fight for him with everything I have." On the fifth day after finding MJ, I went home for the first time. Amy had insisted, said I needed to shower, sleep in a real bed, eat real food. The hospital would call if anything changed. I drove through Queens in the weak December sunlight, the city gray and cold around me. When I pulled up to my building, I sat in the car for a long moment, staring at the place where Tiffany's car had been parked that morning. The morning that had changed everything. My apartment felt strange, too quiet, too still, like a museum of my old life. I showered, the hot water stinging my cut hands. I made soup I couldn't taste. I tried to sleep but couldn't. Instead, I found myself thinking about Marcus. About the last time I'd seen him alive, 3 days before the accident. He'd come to visit, which was unusual. Tiffany usually made excuses why they couldn't come. He'd seemed nervous that day, distracted. We'd had coffee in this kitchen, and he'd asked me strange questions. "Mom, if something happened to me, would you help take care of my family?" "Nothing's going to happen to you, Marcus. But if it did, would you?" "Of course I would." "You know that. Why are you asking?" He'd looked at me with those serious brown eyes. "Just promise me. Promise you'll protect them." I'd promised, not understanding what he meant, not knowing that 3 days later he'd be dead. Had he known? Had he suspected something was wrong with Tiffany? I went to the closet where I kept Marcus's things, the boxes of his belongings that Tiffany had given me after the funeral. She'd said she couldn't bear to look at them. Now I wondered if she just wanted them out of her sight, wanted to erase Marcus completely. I pulled down the boxes and started going through them. Clothes, books, his old laptop, papers from his apartment, and then I found it. At the bottom of the second box, wrapped in a t-shirt, a journal, brown leather, worn at the edges. I opened it with trembling hands. The first entries were from years ago, thoughts about work, about friends, nothing important. But then I got to entries from 2 years ago, from when he'd met Tiffany. Met someone today. Tiffany. She's beautiful, confident. But there's something I can't figure out. Like she's wearing a mask. I'm probably overthinking it. I kept reading, my heart sinking with every page. Tiffany asked me how much I make today, 3rd time this month. It feels strange, like she's evaluating me. Found her going through my bank statements. She said she was just curious, but why would she look without asking? Tiffany wants to get married, fast. She says we should elope. I suggested waiting, planning something nice. She got angry, said if I loved her, I wouldn't make her wait. And then, dated 3 months before his death, I found gambling receipts in Tiffany's purse. $3,000 lost in one night at an online casino. When I asked her about it, she said it was a one-time thing. But I checked our joint account. She's been withdrawing hundreds every week for months. How did I not notice? My hands were shaking. I kept reading. Tiffany is pregnant. She told me this morning. I should be happy. I want to be happy. But something feels wrong. She's been so secretive lately. Staying out late, taking phone calls in the bathroom. When I asked her about it, she said I was being paranoid. I changed my will today. Everything goes to the baby now. I don't trust Tiffany with money anymore. Found out she owes $85,000 to some people she won't name. Loan sharks, I think. She's in trouble, but I'm not giving her access to everything I've worked for. And then the last entry, dated the day before the accident. Tiffany threatened me today. She found out I changed my will. She said I'd regret cutting her out. She said things that scared me. I'm going to talk to Mom tomorrow. Tell her everything. I need help. I need to know what to do, because I think my wife might be dangerous. Tears blurred the pages. Marcus had known. He'd seen the danger coming. He'd tried to protect his son, tried to reach out for help, but he'd run out of time. I grabbed my phone and called Detective Rivera. It was 9:00 p.m., but she answered on the second ring. Mrs. Reynolds? I found something. Marcus's journal. You need to see this. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Monica arrived with her partner, Detective James Coleman. They sat at my kitchen table and read every page of the journal, their expressions growing darker with each entry. This changes everything, Monica said when she finished. This shows premeditation. This shows motive. Can you use it? Absolutely. This proves Marcus suspected Tiffany was dangerous. It proves he changed his will to protect his son. It proves she threatened him. James was on his phone, typing rapidly. I'm requesting a full forensic review of the accident. We need to check that car again. You think she sabotaged it? Monica looked at me with hard eyes. I think your son was murdered. Mrs. Reynolds, and I think his wife did it for the life insurance and the trust fund he left for his child. The words hung in the air like smoke. Marcus hadn't died in an accident. He'd been murdered by the woman he'd trusted, the woman carrying his child. How much money are we talking about? I asked. Monica pulled out a folder. According to the financial records we've obtained, Marcus had a $400,000 life insurance policy with Tiffany as beneficiary. He had $120,000 in his 401k, also going to Tiffany if no children survived him. He had a trust fund worth $200,000 that was specifically designated for future children. And his house had about $180,000 in equity. She did the math on her notepad. If the baby doesn't exist, Tiffany gets approximately $900,000. If the baby lives, she only gets the $400,000 life insurance, and the baby gets the rest held in trust. So she needed MJ to die. Exactly. And based on this journal, she needed Marcus to die before he could expose her gambling debts or divorce her. James looked up from his phone. I just got confirmation. They're pulling Marcus's car from the impound lot tomorrow for a full forensic examination. If the brakes were tampered with, we'll find it. The next morning, I was back at the hospital sitting by MJ's incubator when Amy found me. Mrs. Reynolds, there's someone here to see you. He says he has information about your son. A man in his 50s appeared in the doorway, wearing a mechanic's uniform with the name Eddie embroidered on the pocket. He looked nervous, guilty. Mrs. Reynolds? I'm Eddie Martinez. I need to tell you something. About your son's car. Monica appeared behind him. She'd had him brought here to me. Go ahead, Eddie, Monica said. Tell Mrs. Reynolds what you told me. Eddie couldn't meet my eyes. I'm a mechanic. I work at Garcia's auto shop in Brooklyn. 3 weeks before your son died, a woman came to my shop. Blonde, pretty. She said her husband's car had been making weird noises. Asked if I could take a look. Tiffany, I whispered. I didn't know her name then. She paid cash. $500. She asked me to do something to the brake line. Make it look like it would fail gradually. Said it was for insurance fraud, that they needed the money. I felt sick. And you did it? Eddie finally looked at me, his eyes red. I was desperate. I owed money to some bad people. My daughter needed surgery. I told myself it wasn't really hurting anyone, just insurance fraud. I didn't know. I didn't know anyone would die. You killed my son, I said, my voice shaking with rage. I know, and I've been living with it every day. When I saw the accident on the news, when I realized what I'd done, I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I wanted to come forward, but I was scared. Scared of going to jail, scared of the people I owed money to. So why now? Monica asked. Because I heard about the baby, about how she tried to kill a baby, and I realized she was always planning to kill someone, maybe both of them. And I can't live with being part of that anymore. Monica looked at me. Eddie is cooperating fully. He's giving us a detailed statement. We have him on tape admitting to sabotaging the brakes. Combined with Marcus's journal, we have a strong case for murder. But you still need to find Tiffany. We will. She can't hide forever. Eddie stood up to leave, but I stopped him. Wait, my son had a phrase he always said. The truth will set you free, but first it'll make you miserable. You did a terrible thing. You helped kill my son. But you're telling the truth now. That matters. Eddie's face crumpled. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. If I could take it back, but you can't. None of us can. We just have to live with what we've done and try to make it right. After he left, I sat with MJ, holding his tiny hand through the incubator opening. Your daddy was a good man, I whispered to him. He died protecting you, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows the truth. 2 weeks after finding MJ, the forensic report came back on Marcus's car. The brake line had been deliberately cut partway through, designed to fail gradually. Combined with Eddie's testimony and Marcus's journal, the DA filed charges. Murder in the first degree for Marcus, attempted murder for MJ, conspiracy to commit fraud. Now they just needed to find Tiffany to arrest her, but she'd vanished completely. International alerts went out. Her photo was on the news every night, but there were no sightings, no credit card usage, no phone activity. It was like she'd disappeared into thin air. Meanwhile, I fought my own battle. Sandra Wright, the social worker, had started the custody evaluation process. Home visits, psychological interviews, financial reviews. Mrs. Reynolds, you're 64 years old, Sandra said during one visit. Raising a newborn is challenging for anyone, but at your age. I was an ER nurse for 30 years. I know how to care for people. I know how to handle emergencies. I'm in good health, and I'm all the family MJ has. What about your financial situation? I have my nursing pension, $2,800 a month. I have savings. I own my apartment outright. I can provide for him. And the physical demands? Waking up every few hours, carrying an infant, keeping up with a toddler? I'll manage. People raise children at all ages. My age is an asset, not a liability. I have patience, experience, stability. But I could see the doubt in her eyes. To the system, I was just an elderly woman trying to raise a baby. Never mind that I'd saved his life. Never mind that I was his grandmother. Father Michael became a regular visitor, bringing food, offering prayers, just being present. God has a plan, he'd say. I wish he'd share it with me, I'd reply. 3 weeks after finding MJ, he was finally released from the hospital. Not to me, to a temporary foster family approved by the state. I stood in the NICU and watched a stranger buckle my grandson into a car seat and carry him away. You can visit twice a week, Sandra told me. Supervised visits. In the meantime, keep completing the requirements for custody. Twice a week. 2 hours each time. That's all I got of my grandson while strangers raised him. I drove home in tears, feeling like I'd lost Marcus all over again. But then, 4 weeks after finding MJ, everything changed. I was sitting in my apartment at 11 p.m., unable to sleep, when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Silence. Breathing. Then a voice I recognized immediately. Barbara. Tiffany. My blood ran cold. I grabbed my other phone, the one Monica had given me. Record everything, she'd said. If she contacts you, we need it on tape. I pressed record. Where are you? I managed to say. That doesn't matter. What matters is I have something you want, and you have something I want. You have nothing I want. A cold laugh. I have the truth about what really happened. About why I did what I did. I bet you'd like to know. I already know. I found Marcus's journal. I know you killed him for money. I know you tried to kill MJ for the same reason. You think you know everything, but you don't know why Marcus really died. You don't know what he did that made you murder him? Nothing makes that okay. Then you don't want to hear what I have to say. Fine. I'll hang up and you'll never know the full story. She was manipulating me. I knew it, but I needed to keep her talking. The police needed to trace this call. What do you want, Tiffany? I want my son. I want the money Marcus left. I want to start over somewhere new. That's never going to happen. There's a warrant for your arrest. The police know everything. They know what you've told them. But it's my word against a dead man's journal and a mechanic trying to save his own skin. I can spin this, Barbara. I can say Marcus was abusive, that I was terrified, that everything I did was self-defense, including throwing a newborn baby into a dumpster. I was suffering from postpartum psychosis. I didn't know what I was doing. My lawyers can make a jury believe that. She'd thought this through. She had a plan. What do you want from me? I asked again. Bring MJ to the old warehouse on Riverside. You know the one where you found him. Midnight tomorrow, alone. Bring $200,000 cash. I know you have it. Marcus told me about your savings. And if I don't? Then I disappear forever, and you never know the truth. I'll tell my version of the story from wherever I end up, and there'll always be doubt, always questions. People will wonder if maybe Marcus really was the monster I'll say he was. You're insane. I'm a survivor. Midnight tomorrow, Barbara. Don't be late. The line went dead. I immediately called Monica. She was at my apartment in 15 minutes. We traced the call, she said. Burner phone, already discarded. But we have the recording. This is perfect, Barbara. She's confessing. She's making demands. We can use this. What do I do? You're going to that warehouse, but you'll be wearing a wire, and we'll have a full tactical team in position. When she shows up, we'll get her. What if she sees the police? She won't, I promise you. We've done this 100 times. Trust me. I looked at the photo of Marcus I kept on my bookshelf. Him at 25, smiling, full of life. Before Tiffany, before everything went wrong. Okay, I said. Let's end this. The next day passed in agonizing slowness. Monica's team briefed me over and over. Where to stand, what to say, how to get Tiffany talking, how to signal if I felt threatened. They fitted me with a wire, a tiny microphone that clipped inside my coat collar. She's going to be desperate, Monica warned. Desperate people are dangerous. If at any point you feel unsafe, you say the word Marcus 3 times in a row. That's our signal to move in immediately, no matter what. At 11:30 p.m., I drove to the warehouse. The same alley where I'd found MJ 4 weeks ago. The dumpster was still there, a monument to the worst moment of my life. Monica and her team were already in position. Snipers on roofs, tactical units in adjacent buildings, undercover officers in unmarked cars. I stood in the alley, alone in the cold December night, and waited. At 11:58, a figure emerged from the shadows. Tiffany. She looked different. Short dark hair instead of blonde, thinner, older. 4 weeks on the run had aged her. Did you bring the money? She asked. Did you come alone? I countered. She laughed. I'm not stupid, Barbara. I know you probably called the police. I know they're probably watching right now. My heart sank. She knew. But here's the thing, Tiffany continued. I don't care, because I'm going to tell you the truth. Right here, right now. And then I'm going to disappear, and there's nothing you can do about it. Then talk, I said, and she did. For the next 10 minutes, Tiffany Reynolds confessed everything. How she'd married Marcus for his money. How she'd gambled away tens of thousands of dollars. How she'd panicked when Marcus found out and changed his will. How she'd paid Eddie to sabotage the car. I didn't want to kill him, she said. I just wanted the money. But he was going to divorce me, take everything. I couldn't let that happen. And the baby? I didn't even know I was pregnant until after Marcus died. I thought about getting an abortion, but then I realized if I had the baby and then he died, I could claim it was natural causes, sudden infant death syndrome. No one would question it. I'd get all the money, no complications. So you gave birth alone. At home, in a motel room. I tied the cord with string, wrapped him in a blanket, and then I realized I couldn't do it. I couldn't kill him with my own hands. So I thought, if I just left him somewhere, in the cold, it would look like I'd abandoned him, not murdered him. You threw your baby in a dumpster like garbage. I was desperate, Tiffany's voice rose. I owed $85,000 to people who were threatening to kill me. I needed that money. The baby was he was in the way. Every word was being recorded, every confession transmitted to Monica's team. You killed my son, I said. You tried to kill my grandson. And for what? Money? You don't understand what it's like to have nothing, to owe people who'll hurt you. I did what I had to do to survive. No, I said. You did what you did because you're selfish and cruel and you didn't care who you hurt. Tiffany's face hardened. Well, it doesn't matter now. I'm leaving, and you'll never find me. She started to turn away. Where will you go? I called after her. Where can you go that we won't find you? She turned back, a cold smile on her face. Somewhere warm, somewhere far away, where I can start over with a new name and a new life. And MJ? She laughed. He won't even remember I exist. That's when Monica's voice echoed through the alley. Tiffany Reynolds, you're under arrest. Lights blazed on from every direction. Tactical officers swarmed from doorways and rooftops. Tiffany spun around, her face white with shock. On your knees, now! Monica shouted, her gun drawn. For a moment, I thought Tiffany would run. Her eyes darted around, calculating escape routes. But there were none. She was surrounded. Slowly, she dropped to her knees. Officers rushed forward, cuffing her hands behind her back. You set me up, she spat at me as they hauled her to her feet. I gave you a chance to do the right thing, I said. You chose to confess to murder instead. As they loaded her into the police car, Tiffany looked at me one last time. You'll never be able to raise him properly. You're too old. He deserves better than you. He deserves better than you, I replied. And that's all that matters. Tiffany's arrest made national news. Woman accused of murdering husband, attempting to kill newborn son for insurance money, ran the headlines. Her photo was everywhere, being led into the courthouse in handcuffs, her face blank, emotionless. The trial was scheduled for 3 months later. In the meantime, I had my own battle to fight. The custody hearing was set for 2 weeks after Tiffany's arrest. I sat across from Judge Patricia Brennan, a woman in her late 50s with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen every kind of family tragedy. Sandra Wright presented the state's position. Your Honor, while Mrs. Reynolds has shown remarkable courage in saving the child, we have concerns about her ability to provide long-term care. She's 64 years old. She lives alone in a modest apartment. She has limited income. The child would benefit from placement with a younger family with more resources. My attorney, Gerald Foster, a man I'd hired using almost all of my savings, stood up. Your Honor, Mrs. Reynolds is the child's biological grandmother. She's a retired ER nurse with 30 years of experience caring for people in crisis. She owns her apartment outright and has a stable pension. Most importantly, she risked her life climbing into a dumpster in freezing temperatures to save this child. She's all the family he has. Judge Brennan looked at me. Mrs. Reynolds, why should I grant you custody? I stood up, my legs shaking. Your Honor, I'm not going to pretend I'm the perfect candidate. I'm old. I'm tired. I have arthritis in my knees and I can't run after a toddler the way a 30-year-old could. But I love that baby more than anything in this world. He's all I have left of my son. And I made a promise to my son and to MJ that I would protect him. I don't break my promises. What if your health fails? Then I've prepared. I have life insurance. I've named Father Michael O'Brien as backup guardian. I've thought through every scenario. I'm not asking you to let me raise this child out of sentiment. I'm asking because I'm the best option he has. Judge Brennan reviewed the documents in front of her for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she looked up. Mrs. Reynolds, I'm granting you temporary custody for 6 months. During that time, social services will conduct monthly visits to assess the child's welfare and your ability to care for him. At the end of 6 months, we'll reconvene and determine if custody should become permanent. I felt tears streaming down my face. Thank you, Your Honor. Don't thank me yet. Those 6 months are going to be scrutinized closely. You need to prove you can do this. I will. I promise. 3 days later, I brought MJ home. He was 2 months old now, still small but healthy. His eyes were starting to focus. He could hold his head up for a few seconds. He was a fighter just like his father. I'd prepared everything. The nursery, Marcus's old room, painted soft yellow with a crib, changing table and rocking chair I'd found at a thrift store. Baby supplies I'd bought with money borrowed from Father Michael. A schedule Amy Park had helped me create for feedings. Diaper changes, naps. That first night, I sat in the rocking chair with MJ in my arms, looking at his tiny face in the lamplight. Welcome home, sweetheart, I whispered. This isn't much, but it's yours. You're safe now, I promise. He looked up at me with those serious dark eyes, Marcus's eyes, and made a small cooing sound. I cried. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming weight of responsibility and love. This tiny person depended on me completely, and I couldn't let him down. The next few weeks were the hardest of my life. I'd forgotten how exhausting newborns were. Waking every 3 hours, The endless diaper changes. The crying that meant hungry, or wet, or tired, or nothing at all. At 64, my body didn't bounce back from sleepless nights the way it had at 30, but I managed. Amy Park came by twice a week to check on us and give me tips. Father Michael brought groceries. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, offered to babysit when I needed to shower or sleep. And slowly, day by day, MJ and I found our rhythm. Tiffany's trial began in March, 3 months after her arrest. I attended every day, sitting in the front row, wanting her to see me. Wanting her to know that I was there, that I wasn't going away, that justice was coming. The prosecutor, Assistant DA Lisa Martinez, built a devastating case. They played the recording of Tiffany's confession in the alley. They showed photos of MJ in the dumpster, blue and near death. They read passages from Marcus's journal, Eddie Martinez testified, his voice shaking with guilt, describing exactly how he'd sabotaged the brakes. Forensic experts confirmed the brake line had been deliberately cut. Financial experts showed Tiffany's gambling debts, her desperate need for money, and I testified. I told the jury about finding MJ, about climbing into that dumpster, about hearing him cry. I told them about Marcus, about what a good man he'd been, about how he'd tried to protect his son. Tiffany's defense attorney tried to paint her as a victim, a woman suffering from gambling addiction, postpartum psychosis, married to a controlling husband. They claimed Marcus had been emotionally abusive, that Tiffany had been terrified, but the jury didn't buy it. Marcus's journal showed no abuse, only love and concern. The confession recording showed calculation, not psychosis. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for just 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. First-degree murder for Marcus. Attempted. Murder for MJ conspiracy to commit fraud. Judge sentenced her to life in prison, without possibility of parole. As they led Tiffany away in handcuffs, she looked at me one last time. No emotion, no remorse, just cold emptiness. Your son is going to grow up knowing his mother is a monster, she said. He's going to grow up knowing his father was a hero, I replied. And that's all that matters. 6 months after I'd first brought MJ home, I returned to Judge Brennan's courtroom for the permanent custody hearing. Sandra Wright stood up. Your Honor, Social Services has conducted 6 monthly evaluations of Mrs. Reynolds and the child. In every instance, the child has been healthy, well cared for, meeting all developmental milestones. Mrs. Reynolds has attended every medical appointment, participated in parenting classes, and demonstrated commitment to the child's welfare. Sandra paused, then smiled. The first time I'd seen her smile. We recommend permanent custody be granted. Judge Brennan looked at me. Mrs. Reynolds, you've done something remarkable. You've proven that age is just a number when there's love and determination. I'm granting you full permanent custody of Marcus Reynolds, Jr. Additionally, since the biological mother has been convicted and had her parental rights terminated, I'm approving your petition for adoption. Congratulations. The gavel fell. MJ was officially, legally, permanently mine. I cried right there in the courtroom. Gerald Foster hugged me. Father Michael, sitting in the gallery, wiped his eyes. Even Sandra Wright looked emotional. Thank you, I said to the judge. Thank you for believing in me. Don't thank me. You did all the work. Now go raise that boy right. The years passed faster than I expected. MJ grew from a tiny infant into a curious toddler, then a bright preschooler, then a thoughtful kindergartner. Every milestone was precious. His first smile at 3 months. His first word, gamma, at 10 months. His first steps at 14 months, wobbling across my apartment into my waiting arms. I took him to Marcus's grave every year on his birthday. I tell him stories about his father. Your daddy loved you before he even met you. He died protecting you. He was the bravest man I ever knew. At 3, MJ started asking questions. Why don't I have a mommy? You do have a mommy, I'd say carefully. But she made some very bad choices. She's in a place where people go when they hurt others. You have me instead. Is that okay? You're gamma, he'd say, hugging me. That's better than okay. At 5, he asked harder questions. How did Daddy die? I'd prepared for this. Kept it simple, age-appropriate. Someone hurt your daddy's car. It crashed. He died trying to protect you and me. Was it bad people? Yes, sweetheart. Very bad people. But they can't hurt us anymore. We're safe. The physical challenges of raising a young child at my age were real. My knees ached from getting up and down off the floor. My back hurt from carrying him. I moved slower than the young mothers at the playground, but I managed. I learned to ask for help. Mrs. Chen watched him when I needed a doctor's appointment. Father Michael taught him to play chess. Amy Park, who became a close friend, took him to the park when my knees were too painful. It took a village, but we built one. On MJ's 5th birthday, I threw a party in our apartment. Nothing fancy, just a few kids from his preschool, some neighbors, cake and ice cream. MJ ran around with his friends, laughing, playing, covered in frosting. He looked so much like Marcus it hurt. The same dark hair, the same serious eyes that could suddenly light up with joy, the same gentle way he treated others. Father Michael sat next to me on the couch, watching the chaos. "You did good, Barbara." He did good. He's the one who survived. I just showed up. You did more than show up. You saved his life. Twice, once in that dumpster, and once by fighting the system to keep him. I'd do it again. 1,000 times over. As the party wound down and parents collected their children, MJ came over and climbed into my lap, getting too big for this, but still small enough that I could hold him. "Gamma, was this the best birthday ever? What do you think?" "The best ever. Even better than when I was 4, I laughed. "I'm glad, sweetheart. Gamma, when I grow up, I'm going to be just like Daddy." My throat tightened. "How do you know what Daddy was like?" "You told me. He was brave. He protected people. He loved me even though he never met me." "That's exactly right. So I'm going to be brave too, and protect people, and love people even if I never met them." I held him tighter. "Your daddy would be so proud of you. Is he watching us? From heaven?" "I believe he is." "Then I'll wave at him." MJ looked up at the ceiling and waved. "Hi, Daddy. I'm 5 now. Gamma made me a cake." Tears streamed down my face, but I was smiling. That evening, after MJ was asleep, I sat alone in the living room looking at the photos on my wall. Marcus as a baby, Marcus graduating college, Marcus on his wedding day, so happy, so full of hope, not knowing what was coming, and next to those photos, new ones. MJ in the hospital, tiny and fighting, MJ taking his first steps. MJ on his first day of preschool, backpack almost as big as he was. MJ at 5, grinning with missing front teeth. My phone buzzed. A text from Monica Rivera, who I still heard from occasionally. "Saw your Facebook post about MJ's birthday. He's beautiful, Barbara. You should be proud," I texted back. "Thank you for everything you did. We wouldn't be here without you. You would. You're the toughest person I've ever met. That kid is lucky to have you." I looked in on MJ before going to bed. He was sprawled across his toddler bed, covers kicked off, one arm hanging off the edge, mouth open. Exactly like Marcus used to sleep when he was little. I covered him with his blanket and kissed his forehead. "Sweet dreams, my love. Grandma's got you, always." 5 years later, I'm 69 now. MJ is 10 in 5th grade, tall for his age, brilliant in math, kind to everyone. He plays soccer and reads science fiction and wants to be an engineer like his father. My body has slowed down. My knees are worse. I need reading glasses now. I get tired earlier in the evening, but I'm still here. Still fighting. Still raising Marcus's son. Last week, MJ came home from school upset. "Gamma, kids were asking me why I live with you and not my parents." We sat at the kitchen table, and I gave him the age-appropriate version of the truth. More details than before, but still protecting him from the worst of it. "Your daddy died trying to protect you from someone dangerous, and I made him a promise that I would raise you. Keep you safe. Love you. That's why you live with me. Are you going to die soon? Because you're old?" The question was so direct, so innocent, it broke my heart. "I don't plan on it," I said. "I'm going to stick around as long as I can." "But MJ, everyone dies eventually. When I do, not for a long time, but when I do, Father Michael will take care of you, and you'll have all our friends and neighbors. You'll never be alone. Promise?" "Promise." He hugged me tight. "I'm glad you're my Gamma, even if you are old and slow." I laughed through tears. "Me too, kid. Me too." 10 years after finding MJ, I'm 74 now. MJ is 15, taller than me, with Marcus's build and his gentle nature. He's on the robotics team at school. He volunteers at the hospital where I used to work. He's everything good that Marcus was, with none of Tiffany's cruelty. We don't talk about her anymore. She's serving her life sentence in a prison upstate. She sent a few letters over the years. I've never opened them, just forwarded them to Gerald Foster in case they're relevant for any legal matters. MJ knows the full story now. I told him on his 13th birthday, sitting in the same place where I'd found him all those years ago. The dumpster is gone now, replaced by a community garden. But I showed him the exact spot. "This is where I found you," I said. "In a garbage bag. In December, freezing to death," he'd cried. I'd cried. "We'd held each other in that alley for a long time." "Why did you tell me?" he'd asked. "Because you deserved to know the truth. Your mother was sick. She made terrible choices. But your father loved you. And I love you. And that's what matters. Do you ever wish you hadn't found me? That you didn't have to raise me?" "Never, not once. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, MJ. You gave me a reason to keep living after your father died. You saved me as much as I saved you." Now, at 15, he's applying to the same high school Marcus went to. He wants to study engineering, follow in his father's footsteps. "I'm going to make him proud," MJ tells me constantly. "You already have," I tell him, "just by being you." Last night, MJ found me looking through old photos of Marcus. He sat next to me on the couch. "Tell me about him," he said, like he'd done 100 times before. So I told him. About Marcus's first day of kindergarten, how he'd been terrified but pushed through anyway. About his high school robotics competitions. About how he used to make me breakfast on Mother's Day, burning the toast every single time but being so proud of himself. "He sounds cool," MJ said. "He was the best son I could have asked for." "And you're just like him. Gamma, when you die, not planning on it anytime soon. But when you do, eventually, will you tell Dad about me? About how I turned out?" I pulled him into a hug. "Sweetheart, I think he already knows. I think he's been watching this whole time. And I think he's so proud he could burst. You think he's happy? That I'm his son? I know he is. Because you're everything he hoped you'd be. Everything good and kind and brave." We sat there in comfortable silence, looking at photos of a man MJ never met but knows by heart. "I love you." "Gamma," he said finally. "I love you too, MJ, more than you'll ever know." Today I'm sitting on a bench in the community garden that replaced that dumpster, watching MJ play soccer with his friends. He's 16 now, applying to colleges, talking about studying mechanical engineering. My body is failing. I know this. My doctor says my heart is weak. My knees barely work. I take 12 different medications every morning, but I'm still here, still fighting, still watching MJ grow into the man his father would have been proud of. Father Michael sits down next to me. "How are you feeling, Barbara?" "Tired, but happy. You did something incredible, you know. Not just saving him, but raising him right. I did what any grandmother would do. No, you did what a hero does. You saw something wrong and you fixed it. You saw a child in danger and you saved him. You fought the system and you won. That's not ordinary, Barbara. That's extraordinary." I watch MJ score a goal, his teammates cheering, his face lit up with joy. "I never wanted to be extraordinary," I say. "I just wanted to keep my promise, to Marcus, to MJ, that I'd protect him no matter what, and you did. Every single day for 16 years. That's not just keeping a promise, Barbara. That's love. Pure and simple." MJ runs over, sweaty and grinning. "Gamma, did you see that goal?" "I saw it." "You were amazing." He hugs me, not caring that he's sweaty, not caring that his friends might see. "Love you, Gamma." "Love you too, sweetheart. Always." He runs back to his game and I watch him go. This boy I pulled from a dumpster 16 years ago. This child who should have died but survived. This young man who carries his father's legacy in every smile, every kindness, every brave choice. I found him in the darkest moment of my life, and he gave me light. I saved his life that frozen December morning, but the truth is, he saved mine too, and I wouldn't change a single moment of these hard, beautiful, exhausting, perfect 16 years, not one. If this story moved you, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps me continue sharing stories that uncover the hidden truths of everyday life. There are so many more untold stories waiting to be revealed. Thank you for being here. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in their place? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please share them with me in the comments below. On the screen, you can see 2 more life stories I strongly recommend. There are many more waiting on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story.